Kind of a subject, I think, that transcends any job. Everybody all the surveys we've done, and we've done a lot, indicate that people are saying the hardest part of their job is their having to deal with other people. That the people part of it becomes the biggest obstacle to their enjoying their job and getting the bigger piece of life or the bigger bite out of life that they're all looking for. So that's kind of what we're going to concentrate. And I know, you're from a cross-section, of different kinds of jobs, bank tellers and salespeople and managers. And in any one of these jobs, the people aspect becomes tough. In fact, we say it's hard to be effective sometimes because people come into your office and they say things like, I've had it. I wouldn't work with this chicken outfit, another lousy company on the face of the earth. Now, of course, if you're a cool manager in control, you find yourself saying things like, Charlie, you're really upset. And I know you well enough, Charlie, to know you wouldn't be upset without a good reason, and I'm going to be sure I understand the reason. Charlie, would you mind telling me all that again? Now, see, Charlie has just dumped most of his bucket of emotional tension all over you, but he's got a little bit left. Well, he did this, and she did this, and they did this. Let it out, Charlie. Charlie does, in fact, let it all out. And, of course, you then notice that his behavior begins to change a little bit. The words change, and the body language changes, the tone changes, and in a sense, we might say sort of the adult in Charlie begins to take over. Your adult, his adult, get together, solve the problem. Wouldn't be hard to be a manager, teller, salesperson, except in any given day, you got 4 or 5 or 6 Charlie's analysis who come in and dump their bucket all over you. And 2 or 3 customers who can't find anybody else who come in and dump their bucket all over you. 2 or 3 guys from the big office who come down and dump their bucket all over you. At the end of any given day, it's not uncommon for any of us to be carrying around, 10 or 12 buckets. Now, of course, we head home with all these buckets. And, of course, your wife has been collecting her buckets all day long. And then we have what we reverently refer to as the re-entry problem. Well, that's the way it is, but that's not the way it has to be. We don't really have to have all this tension, and we don't have to carry all this around. Pretty much a choice. And why is that important? Because it interferes with what we think is what people are really trying to get out of life. Let me ask you this. If I were to say to you, give me one word that tells me what it is that you're looking for in life. What do you really want out of life? Just one word. Anybody? Success? Give me another word. That's not what I was looking for. Happiness. Because see, success and happiness, kind of the same thing. But let me ask you this. This is a more difficult question. What tells you whether or not you are happy or even successful? What's the measuring device that's going to let you know whether or not you're successful or happy or satisfied? One of the words you might use. Anybody?
Feel good.
Yeah, feel. It's how you feel. That is. So we say the bottom line for all of us in terms of our personal life is to be able to feel the way we want to feel. And that's really what we're going to be talking about. How do we make that happen? Now, let me start with so you know where I'm coming from. I have a son who was in a play for about a year. I think many of you have seen the play or saw the movie at least. Fiddler on the Roof. And if you recall how that play started, the lead character, Tevye, came out right at the beginning to tell us what life was all about. Remember, he said life is like a fiddler on the roof trying to eke out a tune while simultaneously trying not to fall off the roof. Well, I got it. You say, what did you get? Well, let me share with you. I believe, and I know many of you believe, and a lot of people believe, that inside everyone is some music. We don't have to add it. It's a predisposition. It already exists. And then we all have sort of a mission in life, if you will, to find that music, to compose it, to play it, to hear it, and to share it. That already exists. Now, you could use other words if you want for music. You could use words like self-actualization, as Maslow does, or self-fulfillment, or Wilson learning. We talk about becoming as much as you can be. But I think you know what I mean. It is also my observation that so many people go through their entire lives using so much of their energies hanging onto the roof that there's very little energy left over to find their music, play their music, hear their music, or share their music. Now, don't get me wrong. You can't use all your energies to play the music, because what will happen? You fall off the roof. That's sort of the paradox, isn't it? That ability to find just enough energy that is required to survive with, and not too much, and then opening up that energy to be a grower. Because many of us are overdeveloped survivors and underdeveloped growers. Famous people, Margaret Mead, Albert Einstein, Aristotle, you name it, have for years told us that we're only using 5 or 10% of our potential. You've heard that. That used to make me mad. What do you mean 5 or 10%? 12 hours a day, don't give me that. I finally got that too. See, they're saying, look, if I use 5 or 10% of my or if I use 90 or 95% of my energy to hold on to the roof, then I only got 5 or 10% left to grow with, to find, to share, to play the music. So it's that ability to know how that happens. Now, how do we start? I'm going to give you, in fact, we talk about Maslow, and you're all familiar with his hierarchy of relative prepotency, so I won't talk about that. But what I will talk about is sort of a different way to take a look at what it means to be a human being, and let's take the word need. What does it need? What do you mean to survive? What are the needs to survive? So we talk about having needs, and that there are certain things we have to have in order to survive. What are some of the things we have to survive? Got to have food. Got to have air. Got to have shelter. Well, you don't really need shelter. That's sort of you got to have a certain amount of heat. You know, give me the right beach, the right place. I don't need any shelter. I mean, just enough heat. So we got food, air, water, and that. And that's really, what did he say? Gasoline. Aha. Right. Well, that's interesting because a lot of people are reacting to, like, the gasoline shortage, if you will, or any other thing they think they need, as though their very life dependent on it. And they will respond emotionally as though that were true, when in fact it isn't true. And that's kind of key for where I'm leading to. In fact, a lot of people, the word need really denotes, says, if I don't have it, I'm in fact not going to make it. I'm going to be, obliterated. It's all over. And think of all the ways we use the word need. And what it really does, if we use it inappropriately, now get into this more, it takes away our actual power. People become so engrossed with things they think they need that they literally identify with the things they think they need. For example, hi, I'm a BMW. Who are you? Chevrolet. Okay, that makes me feel. I'm a BMW. Who are you? Mercedes. Not too bad. All right. I'm a BMW. Who are you? A Rolls Royce. Oh, my God, I am nothing. See, if I believe that I am what I have, how do I become more of who I am? Got to have more. Got to have more. And, of course, I'm never going to win that one. Hey, don't get me wrong. It's nice to have nice things. It's also important to understand I am not what I have. In fact, if you really get down to it, what I really have is very limited. I have thoughts, I have feelings, and I have a body, and I don't have anything else. Everything else is an illusion. And also it's important when I said we identify with our car. See, we also identify with things that we have, such as thoughts, feelings, and bodies. I am not my thoughts. I have thoughts. I am not my feelings. I have feelings. I am not my body. If you cut off part of my body, the I is still there. I am not my feelings, but I can give away myself to my feelings. I can say things like, I am sick. And when I say that, I have lost control over that, because now I am that. So I am not my feelings. I am not my thoughts. I am not my body. But I use these things, and they help me grow psychologically in what we call things that I can do. And doing and achieving and performing is a lot I want to go talk about. But it's also important to know I am not what I do. I'm separate from you. Go to the cocktail party, you say, hi, what do you do? Doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. How much did you do? Oh, well, I did more than that. Kind of goings on. Okay, well, if I'm not, what I have and I'm not what I do, who am I? And you see, that's kind of funny, but it isn't funny. I spent a whole week at a seminar one time, which, in fact, all we talked about is you can't talk about what you do, and you can't talk about what you have. And so what did you talk about? And that was kind of hard for a lot of people. I can't tell people who I am and what I... No, just talking about something else. We talk about, then, the being. See, the human being. When in Wilson Learning we talk about helping others become as much as they can be, we're talking about something that exceeds what we have or what we do. Now, it's not easy to talk about what this is. We're not going to have the time. It's almost metaphysical. But it's important because what I have is changeable. What I do is changeable. What I have is rateable. I can have a Mercedes and you can have something better or worse. What I do is rateable, but who I am is neither changeable nor rateable. That's a tough concept for us. The I that I started as a child and the I that I go through all life and the I that I die with is never going to change. And it cannot be better or worse. Let me tell you why that's important. I was known, if you will, as a poor speller. I guess I'm still known somewhat as a poor speller. At any rate, this put a lot of pressure on me, or I let this put a lot of pressure on me, and because it correlated with, a lot of other things, and people telling me what that meant. So by the time I got to college and started taking subjective examinations, and I had visions of a teaching professor subjectively evaluating my subjective examination, and so I went to the testing bureau and said, I got this problem. So they said, well, we'll test you out. And they did. They said, yep, you got this problem. They said, people spell three different ways. They spell phonetically. They have to hear it. Or they spell visually. They got to close their eyes and see it. Or they spell kinesthetically. They have to write it out. We've tested you. You don't spell any one of these ways. They said, there's only one way left for you, and that's memory. And they said, that's not very good. Now, I'm almost, on the bottom of the floor. They said, however, there's something you ought to know. You ought to know that an ability to spell correlates with nothing else. Nothing else. I said, you mean it means I'm dumb? But no, nothing else. For the first time, it's like somebody came along, at 20 years of age and took this giant boulder off my back that I had been carrying around all my life. Now, it's in that area that I'm really talking about now, because most people believe that all day long, 365 days of the year, they're putting themselves on the line. And it's illusion. They aren't. There is no way they can put the intrinsic self on the line. And if we think that, and if we behave that way, all we do is make those pains, if you will, come about. Well, we could spend a lot of time on that. That's not really the purpose, except to maybe think about that a little bit. We say, the bottom line is, for all of us, we have two natural resources, don't we? That we're all born with to spend or give away or throw away: time and energy. How we use them. And we use them in three broad areas. We use them to maintain ourselves. Now, maintaining, remember, is what? Holding onto the roof. It's surviving. We use our energies to problem solve. And we use our energies to create or to recreate. Our performance, and as we are valued by others in performance sense, not who we are in self, but how we're valued, has a lot to do with this. Maintain, problem solve, and create. Obviously, if we're using 90% or 95% of our energies to maintain, to hold on, we're not as effective as a performer. In fact, let me ask you this. When we're creative, there's a posture, there's a physical posture that we can identify. And I know you've experienced it. We call it sort of relaxed concentration. Relaxed, not in the sense of going to sleep, but relaxed in the sense that all of your energies are flowing, if you will, together. There's nothing resisting them. And concentration to me means an outward focus. I'm problem-oriented or task-oriented. I'm out there focusing on something that I want to create. Now, what would be incidentally, Elmer Green, Menninger Clinic Research Director, says we have more ideas in the theta brainwave state. When does theta occur as a brainwave state normally?
When you wake up.
Okay, right before you go to sleep, right before you wake up, in the most physically relaxed time. We have our good ideas, not, in the office when our good ideas come when we're running or shaving or driving, or times that are very unstructured, when in fact we sort of are at peace with self. And if we can make that happen more. But anyway, if relaxed and outwardly focused is the posture of our creative self, what would be the posture of our less creative self, or our maintenance self? Instead of relaxed, what? Sure, tense. Uptight, right? And inwardly focused on self in a worrying context. Anybody in here ever worry? Got some worriers? Okay, let me ask you, did the process of worrying ever tire you out? Yeah, it takes tremendous energy. Did the process ever solve the problem? No. So here we are taking one of our natural resources, right? Time and energy, expending them completely in a non-productive way. In fact, not only non-productive, counterproductive. Self-defeating way. In fact, most of our self-defeating behavior occurs when we're down here. Let me give you a performance example. 1960, most of us can remember this one, when our leader at that time, John F. Kennedy, wanted to marshal all the energies and resources of a whole country around a worthwhile goal. He said, why don't we do something really significant? Let's shoot the moon. I mean, nobody's ever done that before. We got excited about that. How many watched the first moon landing? Yeah. How many watched the second moon landing? How many watched the third moon landing? What the hell, they'll make it. Their baggage probably won't get back, but they'll get back. Well, my point is we do take technological change pretty much for granted. Here's some data that you might be interested in. I found out that anybody in this audience could have been along on those first 3 moonshots. Literally, this is true. The reason is because there were no problems to solve. None. Now remember, our creative top of the pyramid self is very task, problem solving, create, solve problems. Well, these people, remember, were recruited and trained and developed to do what? Solve problems, and there were no problems. The biggest single problem that emerged in the first 3 moonshots, as far as the people side of it was concerned, was boredom. They were literally bored. They made up games. Anyway, Apollo 13 had some good news and some bad news. Bad news of Apollo 13 was that the rocket blew up in flight. The good news, if you recall, was that the astronauts came through all that training, simulation, preparation, selection, all that paid off. Now, you got to believe, when the rocket blew up in flight, it did in fact produce some tension. They didn't just say, did you hear that? Well, pass the tang, and we'll get to that in a minute, you know. Jim Lovell, who was captain of that particular ship, manager, if you will, of that event, you've heard his words. We got them on tape. And you got to listen to the words in relation to the situation, the tone, the tenor, the words themselves. When he said, Houston, I think we got a problem, you knew, by hearing those words, something right off. You knew that Jim Lovell was in charge. And you knew also who it was that he was in charge of, which is who? Yeah. See, that's the whole key. When we talk about becoming as much as you can be, what we're really talking about, that's sort of abstract. All right, let me be concrete with it. Becoming as much as you can be means being able to be independent and responsible. Independent means got more options. Every day I can add more options, plus the process, if you will, know how to select the most appropriate options in a given situation. Responsible means the willingness to accept the consequences for any option I select. See, most people, it sounds good, like, particularly if you say, well, I'd rather be independent than dependent, and I'd rather be responsible than... And yet, giving up some of that dependency and some of that irresponsibility is not as easy as it sounds. It's something we've been carrying around all our lives. Blanket, bottle, teddy bear. See, I don't want to have to be responsible. Don't make me responsible. I'm not responsible. He's responsible. She's responsible. They're responsible. It's responsible. You're responsible. But I'm not responsible. That's a tough one to give up. That's a tough one. I hope that when this program is over, you're going to be able to, be so in charge yourself that you would, people go around saying things. You'll never be able to do this again. Say things like, "You make me sick." I mean, you'll never be able to say that again because you know that is irresponsible and irrational. You're going to say things like, "I make me sick." I tend to make myself sicker when you're around than when you're not. But nonetheless, I know that I am the one that is responsible for me. And that's a giant step. See, that's letting go of the root. That's letting go of the fact that all these other people are, in fact, the ones that made it happen. We did a film on that event, the Apollo 13, for Ford Motor called Houston, I Think We Got a Problem, or How to Avoid Surprise, Panic, and Blame. Now, those 3 words, I don't know if you can read this. That's think, feel, and behave. Surprise, panic, and blame. What was surprise? In one of those 3 categories, what would surprise be? No. I mean, in terms, is that thinking, feeling, or behaving? The phenomena of surprise. That's thinking. Sure. Something happened different than I expected it to. Panic is what? Sure. Panic is a negative emotion or a negative feeling, and blame is what? It's a behavior. And it's very key what kind of behavior it is. The behavior here is designed not to solve the problem, but to get rid of the panic or the pain of the panic. And therein becomes our self-defeating behaviors. We've all developed ways that we have learned over a long period of time to literally avoid pain. And let me give you an example. One of my beliefs, as I grew up, was that everybody ought to love me, and nobody ought to ever hurt me. I mean, that was part of me. Now, I grew up in a big family. Got to take you back when I was about 6 years old. Big family, that means a lot of fights right before dinner, right? And so this one night I got, that's it, kid, you did it up to bed. I probably didn't do it, maybe did, don't know. But anyway, I'm up there now in bed under the covers, and I'm feeling pretty bad, a lot of pain. I mean, I'm hurting because I said nobody ought to hurt me and nobody will love me, and here I am. Not only am I up there in pain, I'm listening to them down there, and they're going on with life as usual, which increases and intensifies the pain. Then I had what we've now called an unlucky learning experience. Let me tell you what it was. Somehow, just sort of magically, in my imagination, I had a thought. And the thought had the effect of reducing the intensity of the pain. Here was the thought. I could run away. And then they would miss me. And all of a sudden, the pain sort of, the intensity of it sort of went down, and I started grooving on that. I said, boy, not only could I run, I could die. That'd be even better. I could die, and then they would really... And I could see the funeral and the casket, and everybody's crying, and all of a sudden I'm almost feeling good, feeling bad. Well, see, that's a self-defeating behavior. Why is it self-defeating? Because what is my goal? My goal is to have people love me, never hurt me. How easy is it to love somebody who's sitting around feeling sorry for themselves all the time? So I got to pay off in the short run, self-defeating in the long run. What are some other pain killers that we all use? Okay, I don't even want to play the game, can't get hurt. What are some other things that we do to kill pain? Habits, perform, things that we've learned to do, unlucky learning experiences, that we hang on to like the roof. Any other painkillers? Dramatic painkillers? Or rationalization? Pity? Leave? Can't do it? How about some artificial painkillers? Oh, a little drink now and then. That might make it feel a little better, make all that pain go away. A few drugs, that'll make it go away. But always self-defeating. Okay? Suicide is the ultimate withdrawal, right? I'm not going to play the game. And then they'll miss me. And that's really kind of what I was going through, the whole idea. So what we're saying is that in order to get in charge of ourselves, first, we have to acknowledge that whatever is happening to us is happening to us exactly the way it should happen to us. Because everything that we're doing to make that happen has been done. And we haven't done anything differently. And although we kind of strive like we're trying to do things, the fact is we're so involved in holding on and have such a vested interest in what we've learned that works, all of which is what we would call negative kind of reinforcement. In other words, getting rid of pain, rather than a positive kind of reinforcement which says, hey, I don't want to just not feel bad. I want to feel good. Remember, that's what we said happiness it was all about. So let's take a look at how we go through the process of feeling the way we want to feel. Now, why don't people let go of these old things? Let me tell you. Because they're afraid. See, I don't want to let go of something that I'm really familiar with, even though it hurts. It's like the guy that that fell off the mountain, and he grabbed a branch on the way down, and he thought at one time about becoming religious, and this seemed like a pretty good time to rethink it. And so he started somewhat of a prayer, and he said, if there's a God in heaven, I really need your help. This would be a terrific time to give me some help. Please, would you help me? And the clouds part, and this voice came down and said, son, I can help you. But first, you got to let go of the branch. He said, let go of the branch. Is there anybody else up there? Let's take a look. Let's take a look at how we can make it happen. How we can not only not feel the way we don't want to feel, but then in fact we can begin starting to feel the way we do want to feel. In fact, I'm going to give you what we call the ABCs of feeling the way you want to feel. It's that simple. And if we really get it, it can help today, right now, as you walk out of this room, begin to help change the way your whole life's goal, happiness, feeling the way you want to feel. The ABCs, A, B, and C. The A in this simple little formula we're going to call an activating event. This is something that happens to me out there, something outside of self that happens to me. C, we're going to call a consequence. In this case, it's a consequence in feelings. In feelings. This is probably the greatest single illusion that all of us go through life with. That the A's of our life, the things that happen out there, are in fact responsible for the C's of life, how I feel. And of course, that's a great illusion, but if it is believed to be fact, it is no wonder that most people are walking around anxious, uptight, scared, and afraid. Why? How much control do you have over the A's of your life? How much control? None. So if, in fact, my bottom line, my goal is to feel the way I'm going to feel, and that is totally in the hands of something over which I have no control, it is small wonder that most people are, in fact, not anxious, scared, afraid, on tranquilizers, too much booze, all kinds of self-defeating behaviors we have gained and learned, because we don't think there's another alternative. But in fact, there is. Let me give you an example of how this really works. Let's see. I'm going to pick on these three people right here. I'm not going to pick on you. That's a terrible way to say it, isn't it? Give me your first names. Rose, Harry, Dennis. Okay. Now, I don't know a lot about Rose and Harry and Dennis, except I just happen to know that they grew up in the state of Florida. That Rose actually grew up in the Okefenokee swamps. You didn't know that, did you, Rose? It's okay. Don't get worried. Harry, is it Harry? Harry grew up in Miami, and Dennis. All right, we'll go with Dennis. Dennis grew up in Tampa. Now, it's important to have that background information. I'll tell you why. With that information, you're going to understand what we're going to do. Because Rose, in growing up in the Okefenokee swamps, really, at a very early age, became infatuated with snakes. I mean, she really digs snakes. I mean, she had books on snakes, an aquarium full of snakes, and I mean, just really relates well with snakes. Now, Harry, on the other hand, growing up in Miami, petrified of the idea. I mean, a snake just sense. In fact, Harry has been watching this cord, and with a great deal of trepidation, every time it goes by, he sort of twitches. You know, says, that could be it. This could be it. You know. Now, Ken. Is it Ken? It's not Ken. It's Dennis. Hey, listen, I want you to know, I got a great memory. It's just short. Dennis grew up in Tampa. He never met a snake he liked, never met a snake he didn't like. He can kind of take snakes or let them go. Now, the point of all this is, at great expense, we have flown in, imaginatively, a giant 16-foot boa constrictor. Now, I'm going to guarantee you, as this boa appears on this stage, you're going to see three entirely different kinds of reactions. Rose is going to say, yay, it's a big boa, yippee! Harry is out the door. Dennis is saying, you know, what else is new? Now, the point is, three different kinds of feelings, and it's important for us all to know there are only three ways we can feel about anything. We can feel positively about something, we can feel negatively about something, or we can feel neutrally about something. And you just saw all three of these feelings occur in this illustration. Now, the point is, what is the snake in our ABC formula? It's an A. It's an activating event. The key question is, did the snake produce, or was the snake responsible for these three different feelings? No, of course not. The snake was just coming in looking for a couple of good ideas. Had nothing to do with these responses. So if the snake didn't do it, what did it? Well, it's what we call the B, or the belief. It's the belief about the snake, or the belief systems. We had three different beliefs. And those three different beliefs produced, if you will, three different feelings. Now, the key question is, which feeling was right?
All three of them.
Okay, they're all right. And that's so key for you to understand. They're all right for what? The feelings are right for what? Yeah, for the belief. See, our feelings are always appropriate, and they're always going to be right. But what may be wrong is the belief. Now, here's the key. I said earlier that the bottom line is feeling the way you want to feel. The fact is that people feel based upon what they think about or what they believe. It's also a fact that people don't think about what they think about. But what they think about is causing how they feel or what they do. They think about how they feel, they think about what they do, but they don't think about what's causing how they feel or what they do. Think about that. Literally, that's what I want you to do, is to think about that. Think about the kinds of things that we have created as our beliefs, which we're walking around with at all times, unaware of, for the most part. Unaware that these beliefs are driving those feelings. But we're not taking time to take a look at what they are. I mean, for example, what's your first name?
Bill.
If Bill came up here, pull up a chair, not even a chair, we'll just have you come up here. We won't really have you come up here. But anyway, if he came up here with a rubber hose and started hitting himself in the head with his rubber hose, and every time you hear him say, he'll say, "Ooh, that hurts. Ooh, that hurts. Ooh, that..." We'd finally say, "Hey, Bill, you are committing an irrational act. You are making yourself hurt. Not only that, Bill, you are the only one that can stop that pain." Wouldn't we? And you know, that's what most of us are doing. We're walking around every day of our life, hitting ourselves over the head with a rubber hose, creating pain, doing it to ourselves, and not even working. In fact, Bill is going to be hitting himself so much that pretty soon he's going to confuse pain with pleasure. He's going to think that pleasure is not hitting himself in the head with a rubber hose. In fact, sometimes he's going to hit himself in the head so he can not hit himself, so he can feel the pleasure of not hitting himself. That's crazy, isn't it? It is crazy. But we all do it. Okay? Now, let me give you some beliefs. We could examine all kinds of beliefs. I'm just going to give you four. Four beliefs that we have found through research that are common to everybody in this room has a propensity to at least one of these beliefs. And that doesn't mean you're going to get it, but it's kind of like there's a greater likelihood of you getting one of these than you get others. We could go into the statistics and data on that. I'm not going to do that. Just going to give you the four beliefs, because that's what's important. One of the beliefs that most people have, or a propensity, or at least a big section of the audience does, is the belief that I got to be right. I have to be right. What's the corollary there? What are they really also saying?
Never wrong.
I can never be wrong. That's right. I can never be wrong. Now, that belief isn't consciously thought about, but that's operational. And every time they're in a situation where, in fact, they think they may be wrong or not be right, it becomes, in fact, like life or death for them. They experience the same kind of pressure, the same kind of tension, the same kind of fear, as though, in fact, they are not going to survive. All right? Another one is, I got to always win. Or another way to say that is what? Never lose. Another one is, everybody's got to love me. Nobody should ever reject me. Nobody should ever hurt me is the fourth. Nobody should ever hurt me. Everybody's got to take care of me, Okay? Now, these four beliefs have something in common. You know what it is? They're all irrational. You know why? Because they're all impossible. Is it possible to always be right? Of course not. Is it possible to always win? Is it possible to always be loved? Can anybody other... No, nobody can really hurt you anyway except yourself. I'm talking about psychologically. Physically, yes. Down here, but up in this area, no way. But if we believe it, then we operate the same way out of that belief. Let me show you how this works. I mentioned Jim Lovell, and go back with me to that situation, because I talked to Jim and I said, Jim, he wasn't surprised in the class, even though all the things that happened. He wasn't really surprised. And I said to him, Jim, didn't you practice all these things that could go wrong? He said, we practiced every single one we could think of. I said, how about the one that came up? He said, hell, nobody thought of that. But he said, we had practiced so much that our posture was pretty much that of anticipating a problem. And that was a great word. I was kind of looking for that word, the juxtaposition across from surprise, to anticipate. Now, what does that mean, to anticipate? That means to sit back and say, what might go wrong? And if that went wrong, see, what is the possibility of something going wrong? What is the probability of something going wrong? What would be the circumstances under which that would happen? What would be the conditions or the contingencies? And what would we do about it? We call that potential problem analysis in business every day. And when we're at our best, we sit back and we do that. In flying, they say you got to be a half an hour ahead of the airplane. Okay? Now, You know, if there was an amoeba here, you know, and I stepped on it, you know, he would go, ouch, and die at the same time. I mean, that's a low form of life. He would not, that amoeba would never experience fear. It would only experience pain. Okay. Higher forms of life have what we call distance receptors. They can, you know, they can see you coming. They can smell you coming. They can hear you coming. And that gives rise to fear, which is really fear of pain. Now, the human being has an even advanced system. We not only can smell, hear, and see, we can also imagine something coming. And that's what makes it very important for us, because now we can even alter the events based upon what could happen, build strategies, do great and wonderful things. And that's why we're so advanced in other forms of life. It's the good news, but it's also what? The bad news. Let me tell you how that happens. Like Jim Lovell, we have a game we play called What If. Okay? See, what if it goes wrong? Which means, what if I'm not right? What if they don't love me? What if I don't win? Now, it sounds just like Lovell, so that's nice, you know, potential, except it's not. Key thing about Lovell, it was a question, wasn't it? What if was a question, and he answered it. The what if I'm using in our little game that we play every day, every one of us, including myself, is not a question. It just looks like a question. It's a disguised statement. What do we call a question that's a disguised statement? We call it a rhetorical question, don't we? A rhetorical question. A statement disguised as a question. I'll give you an example. How could you have done that? Is not a question. I mean, you know, like the cars in the living room. Well, I just went to the kitchen and turned left. See, that's not really a question. It's a statement. What is the real statement to how could you have done that? What is the real statement?
You really messed up here.
Keep coming.
Why?
No, not even why. Okay. All right, you're close to it. The real statement is you shouldn't have done that. You don't answer that. You don't say, well, I wouldn't have. You know, because, and you know that's what's really being said. You shouldn't have done it. So we do this to ourselves all the time. We pose questions which are really statements, strongly held beliefs. Look up the word rhetorical. Statement about a strongly held belief disguised as a question. Strongly held belief. Like, what if it doesn't work? What if I am not right? That's the question. But what's the real statement? I'm going to be wrong. Or another way to say it is, I'm not going to be right. I'm not going to win. I'm not going to be loved. That's what we're really saying to ourselves, and that's only half of the statement. Let me give you the devastating half. It's not going to work, and that's going to be a tragedy and the end of the world. You say, I don't say things like to myself like that. I say, oh, yes, you do. See, we just don't think about it, remember? Awful, catastrophe, terrible things that are going to happen if I don't get what I need, if my gas doesn't come and all this. And we begin literally feeling in the same way that we feel if, in fact, a real catastrophe occurred. And it all happens because of what we call our self-talk. It's what we say to ourselves. And remember, people usually don't think about what they think about. I'm talking about keeping us down at the bottom of that pyramid rather than letting us get up on top where our real power is, where our real energy is, where we can really make great things happen by the words that we use. You know, we teach courses on interpersonal skills and human relations and sales, and we're saying, hey, you got to really think about, be prepared for, and be careful what you say to people. Because why? Because it'll influence them, right? It'll influence them how they feel and think. And we're all pretty good at that, aren't we? I mean, we're kind of cautious about what we're going to say to somebody. How cautious are we about what we're going to say to ourselves? How much do we monitor and filter and think about the intra-communication that's going on? We just let ourselves have it all the time. Devastating. And it affects how we feel. We say things like, well, what's the word gigo mean?
Garbage in, garbage out.
Sure, computer language. Garbage in, garbage out. It says where you put in the garbage, you're going to get out the garbage. You know, we say that about what you eat. You know, if you eat junk, you grow up to be junk. Same thing with what we think. If we think junk, you know, our computer in our mind doesn't say, gee, you're probably tired, Denny. You don't really mean that. It says, okay, baby, that's what you want. That's what you're going to get. And we use words every day to give away our power. Think about it. We use words like, I can't. I can't. Give me some I can'ts that you use or hear every single day. I can't, what? I can't do it? What are some other words? I can't. I can't make it. I can't stand it. I can't stand this place. I can't stand that person. I can't stop smoking, I can't stop eating, I can't stop drinking. You know, what does the word can't mean? It means impossible. Are any of those things impossible? But they are if we believe them. See, I'll show you how it works, because we don't even know where we're getting all these words. We're getting them from everywhere. We're not, it's like the lung takes in oxygen, good and bad air. It doesn't say, oh, it's the bad air. It just takes it all in. So does our mind. We use words like I can't. You know, the bottom line is happiness. We're talking about creating, avoiding misery, pain. Music is a great example, because we're impacted by music and we don't even know we're impacted. I'll give you a song. I can't stop loving you. Anybody ever heard that song? Huh? Okay, what's the second line? I've made up my mind. What's the third line? To live in misery. Wonderful that we got people living in misery just like they said they were going to do. You know what? You know what reality is? I can stop loving you. And you know what? It's important for you to know that. Let me tell you why. It's going to be you and me, babe, okay? You and me got this thing going. I say, hey, this is great. I mean, it's Sheila. We got this great thing going. She is making me happy, right? And I really feel good. Wow. I want it to be this forever and ever. And terrific. It's wonderful. Okay? Now, incidentally, let me tell you what it is you love about me. You may not know, but I'm going to tell you what it is you love about me. What you love about me is my top of the pyramid, creative, resourceful, adaptable, relaxed, outwardly focused self. Spontaneous me. Outwardly focused on who, primarily? On you. That's what you really like. Okay, got it? Now, let's assume that somewhere along the line, I come to the conclusion that, by God, my happiness does in fact depend on who? On her. Over which, how much control do I have? None. And I start pondering that. Am I going to stay up that creative, relaxed, or am I going to start concerning myself about that and worrying? And all of a sudden I'm going to say, uh-oh, she is responsible, and I have no control over her. And pretty soon, that which she really loved, that creative, outwardly focused, is no longer there. Now what you got is this uptight, inwardly focused, worried, and thinking about me person. And the very thing that I didn't want to have happen literally took place. Whether it's a relationship in love, whether it's a job, whether it's a sale, whatever it is, the phenomena is exactly the same. We are in control, we are in charge, and sometimes the only reason we're out of control is because we're not thinking about what we're thinking about. Let me give you an example. When I was 23 years old, I started in the insurance business. And, you know, I was on sort of a no-pay contract until I did something. And so anyway, every once in a while I'd get myself in a big deal. I mean, this could be a big sale. And I would start mentally spending the commissions. Then I would start actually spending the commission. Now I got myself set up for a beautiful game of what if. See, what if I don't make this sale? Remember, I wasn't really saying what if. What was I really saying? I'm not going to make this sale. And that's going to be a tragedy and the end of the world. Now, if this was a big deal, obviously in order to be effective as a performer, I'm going to have to be pretty creative and outwardly focused. But if I'm saying to myself, it's not going to work and I'm going to be a tragedy, in a tragedy, am I going to be creative, relaxed, and outwardly focused? No way. And am I going to make the sale? No way. I'm going to say, oh, my gut told me so. Okay, that was happening to me over and over again. And then I did something that I would now call a lucky learning experience. And I want to share it with you. Probably the most significant thing I ever did. All the training, all the other things that we have that we develop really stem, I think, from this one single lucky learning experience. A single conversation I had with me. And I want to share it with you because I can remember it, vividly, where I was and what I said and exactly what took place. It was an important time in my life. Anyway, what I said was, very simply, Larry, you're becoming an emotional basket case. You're not going to make it in this business. And this is self-talk. And I started, analyzing what was going on. And then I made a deal with me. And the deal was very simple. All it said was, no one sale is ever going to be important to me. No one sale is ever going to define who I am or who I'm going to become. And it was fascinating that, like the spelling problem, like somebody took a big boulder off my shoulders. No longer was I putting myself on the line every day. I could lose 1, 2, or 3 sales in a row, but they were all one at a time. I found out that I got better. I freed up more energy. I worked smarter instead of harder, and things went well. And it sort of led to another process, too, because I also had some other beliefs. I didn't solve all my problems with that one conversation, but it was the beginning. I also found that in that business, I had to call on 20 people, almost like this whole group here, to make one sale. Now, remember, I had a basic belief that everybody ought to love me, nobody ought to hate me. How did I view that? 20 people, one sale, 19 rejections, right? And one person loved me. Terrible odds for somebody who believed they ought to be loved. And then I had another lucky learning experience, because this was getting to me. And what I did was I found out that the one person who bought, and I did a lot of analysis, and I've been in long enough to be able to make some sense out of this. The one person who bought was about a $500 commission to me. That's what I got. So what I did was to take this 20 and divide, that was the whole group I had to call on, and divide it into the $500, which of course gave me $25. And then I would go out now, and I would start, making my call, make my whole presentation, do my very best, but if I didn't make the sale, sure not going to buy, okay, then to myself I would say, well, thanks anyway for the $25. And then I would go to the next person, go through the whole process, and we're going to make the sale, knew it, gave my best shot. To myself I would say, well, thanks anyway for the $25. By the time I got around to the guy who did buy, $500 commission, what did I say to myself? Thanks for the $25. That's right. Now what happened, it didn't take long. The 1 out of 20 became 1 out of 10. The $500 became 1,000. Pretty soon it was $100. I could hardly get rejected. Thanks for the $100. Thanks for the $100. Thanks for the $100. The point I want to ask you is, did the events of my life change? Did the age change? No. What changed? The belief. And of course that substantially changed how I felt about them, which actually ultimately did have some influence on the events themselves. Does that make sense? Sure. What I did was to change a painful situation into a positive situation. But the situation didn't really change at all. But what I believed, whether I'm talking about studying or working on the job, see, it's not that the job that makes me happy, it's what I think about it that makes me happy. Everybody is so caught up in, all the problems of their lives. Well, they're out there, but they're not going to go away. They're not going to go away. We're the ones that can alter everything that's out there by just exactly the way we see it and what we believe about it. Okay. Well, what I want to do is to leave you with a gift. I mean, you've been nice enough to sit here and listen to me go on this time. I want to give you something that you can take with you right now, that you can take out and it will give you power. Now, see, don't get me wrong. I am not going to give you any power, because I can't give you any power. I can only give myself power. And of course, you can only give yourself power. So I'm going to give you a key to unlocking some of the power you already have. Some of the power that maybe you've given away. Because that's something that I think, you need and want and would be good for you. Okay, now how am I going to do this? I'm going to give you a word. A single word that's going to give you power. Now I know I know that you want to hear what the word is. Okay, give me the word. I'm ready. Huh? Now, I know what you expect. You're going to expect some kind of mantra, some kind of, or something like Shazam, and out of a phone booth you will charge. Well, you're going to be disappointed when you hear the word. You're going to be disappointed. Until you think about it. And until you learn to incorporate it in your belief system. And then you'll find, right away, it'll release energy. It'll release power. Okay, the word that'll give you the power is inconvenient. I told you you'd be a little disappointed. The word is inconvenient. See, what I want you to be able to say is, after I put all the work into this project, get it right up to the top, and it doesn't work, that's going to be inconvenient. Not a tragedy, and not the end of the world. If I don't make this sale after all the work and effort I put into it, it will be inconvenient. Not a tragedy, not the end of the world. I could lose my job, and that would be inconvenient. Not a tragedy, not the end of the world. He or she could leave me, and that would be inconvenient. Not a tragedy, not the end of the world. Now, you know that I know that you know that I know that what I have just said is, in fact, a fact. Everything I have said is a fact, and you know it is a fact. It may not be truth. Now, truth is simply what you believe. It does not have to be fact. However, there's a great deal of evidence that says we're more successful and get a bigger bite out of life, and we have more fun when our truth is pretty close to what is fact. Okay? Let me ask you this. What's the worst thing that can happen to anybody? They could die. Okay, I got another fact for you. Everybody here is going to die. So there's only two ways you can die. Conveniently or inconveniently. And if the worst thing that can happen is an inconvenient death, everything's got to be less worse than that. But let me give you another fact. Here's another fact. The worst thing that can happen to anybody is not that they can die, because everybody's going to die. The worst thing that can happen to anybody is, and this is highly researched, not that they are going to die, but they have never lived. The people who are most fearful of dying are the people who know they have not lived. They have gone through their entire life hanging onto the roof, waiting for something out there over which they have no control to make it happen for them, which of course it never will. And the people who are least afraid of dying are the people who have let go and who have literally lived and know they have lived. And they've used the power that has always been there to use. And that's all I can see, hope that anybody will be able to do, is to use the power. Get out of bed, if you will, and make it happen. I got one story. I got to close. Actually, it sort of sums it all up. It's about the mother who was fixing breakfast one morning for her son, 7 in the morning. And she yelled at the steps, "Jimmy, get out of bed, you're going to be late for school." And there was no answer. "Jimmy, get out of bed, or you're going to be late for school." Still no answer. Finally, being a dutiful mother, she went up the steps, pushed the door, and said, "Jimmy, get out of that bed, you're going to be late for school." And Jim said, "Mom, I don't want to go to school. There are 1,500 kids in that school, and they all hate me. And the teachers, they hate me too. Yesterday I heard 3 or 4 of them talking about me behind my back. Why would you subject me to all that pain and misery and suffering?" She said, "Jimmy, for 2 reasons. First, you're 42 years of age. And second, you're the principal of the school. Now get out and make it happen," and I've enjoyed sharing this afternoon. Yay, of course. Dennis, I got to say, Dennis. Thank you, Dennis. And Darrell, thank you. And one for you. And one for you. And you just get a handshake. Yes. And you get one. And you get one.